This is Your Creative Journey podcast with Paul Carganilla and Kevin Gregg.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Creative Journey. My name is Kevin Gregg, and you are?
I'm Paul Carganilla.
So glad to have you guys back here with us. This show is all about inspiring creative people, artists, to get out there and do their work, do their art, and we couldn't be happier to be back here with you today. How are you, Paul?
I'm great. I continue to be excited about where it's going and look forward to every Monday when we can just sit down and chat about this stuff.
I dig it, buddy. And actually, what we're going to be talking about tonight is something that you and I are already practicing. It's about supporting one another artistically while you're doing it. I always say this, the creative art, no matter what it is that you're doing, whether you're acting, writing, singing, dancing, at some point it becomes a collaborative project. Even when you're writing, I know that at times you can go off and do your stuff by yourself, but at some point you got to show it to other people. And I always like to say this, is that you really can't, you just can't create in a vacuum. I'm sure you've had experiences like that over the years. I mean, when we're first starting out and learning how to do this stuff, it's great, but at some point you need to get in front of other people, or at least get in front of an audience.
Yeah, well, I think that the whole passion behind the whole source of the artwork comes from the desire to share it with other people. And you can run into artists who are like, I'm just doing this for myself, but that's not really true. I mean, they're expressing themselves because they need to, but the whole reason we creators create is to put our work in front of other people and see how it is judged, as like harshly as that sounds. And it just sounds insane. Like, why would anybody want to do that? Why would that be anybody's goal? It is the reason why we express ourselves in a public forum such as this, and why we take our deepest, darkest feelings and shape them, mold them into something that we present to people. We're creating something from our hearts that needs to be expressed and judged by other people, and we can't do that alone. It's too scary, and no matter how much of a auteur you may be, whether you need help getting it in front of people or just you're gonna need help at some step along the journey from where you create it to where you present it to people. You can't just do it all on your own.
No, absolutely not. And that's why I have such a heart for artists, to the point of what you said. Coming from a background of doing professional acting, you know what it's like, man, when you go into these rooms to audition. I mean, I always refer to it as it's literally like you said, it's like you're revealing your heart, you're opening up yourself, you're being vulnerable in front of strangers. And that can be a very challenging thing in the audition process, where all of a sudden that you feel like you are getting personally rejected. That's not necessarily the case. That's stuff that we'll talk about as we go further along, about how, in a way, I don't want to put it crassly. I don't want to be as short as like, you got to toughen up and deal with it. But it's why I have a heart for the artist, because it can be scary. You are revealing those vulnerable sides of yourself. You're putting something out to other people. Specifically on this episode, we're going to be talking about how the artist can find support amongst other artists. And I think that it starts even at the basic level. I think that the examples that we're probably going to use, Paul and I are going to use like an acting background basis, because that's what we have. But I do think that this translates across into other fields of arts. And I think that one of the basic ways that you do it is when you're first starting out, you start out in classes. That's how I started out, whether it was back in high school or eventually in college, or eventually getting into other theater groups. All of a sudden you're around other people that are kind of like-minded and are trying to do the same thing. What are some of your earliest memories that you have? I know that we talked about you being in high school before, but what was it like for you in terms of high school classes, in terms of junior college classes, things like that?
Yeah, I didn't, when I was performing in high school and junior college, I mean, in high school it was I don't think I even took a theater class, but for music, of course, it was huge. Everybody was learning their instruments and working together and performing together. But as far as like being in an acting class, I didn't really experience that until I was in junior college. And yeah, once you get into organized classes or private classes, whether you're in an institution like a school or you're taking classes privately, what that does is it pairs you up with other like-minded people who are passionate about it, like just like you are, and pairs you up. I know, like, pretty much any acting class, you have to get an acting partner and you have to work on it outside of class and then come present in class. And so that experience in itself is so incredible, in that you get to work with someone who might have a different skill set than you, might just have a different way of going about getting to the same end goal, but just through a different method or a different tactic, and just being able to learn anything you can just by watching other artists do exactly what you do, but a little bit differently.
I just remember something specifically, just as you're talking about that. I remember the first time that I showed up at Cal State LA when I was a freshman. And again, like I talked about, it was it's a working man's campus, So you got people that were older doing it. But I remember going into a black box theater production of this play. It's like this German play called Wojciech, right? And I remember it was just Susan Mason was the director at our school, but it had just a ton of these fantastic student actors that were in this. So, my friend Scott Brown was in it, and Dahlia Vasilius, and a whole bunch of these other people that I knew. And it was such a powerful, passionate play to see these people doing it, right? And these people that were, a couple of years ahead of me, but it was like, it just sparked me, right? When I'm looking at that and going, how I want to be a part of something like this. How do I get to be a part of this? And I remember seeing that with different productions. A buddy of mine, Scott Jones, who was back in college as well too. Powerful and palpable. And I think that when you're seeing other people, to your point, they may not have the same exact skills as you do, but there's something that you see and you go, oh, how do I do that? How can I accomplish it? How did that person do that? And I'm sure that other people see that in art or dancing. It's not the envy issue that we talked about before. It's something that sparks inside of you that goes, how do I become better? And I think that you start, obviously when you're in a school setting, there's certain parameters that you have. I know for myself, when I got out into the working actor field, and all of a sudden you're taking classes in Hollywood, and again, you're around another level of people. You're around another level of people who are outside the parameters of just the school setting, because there can be trappings that happen in an art school setting. Like, it can be very like, okay, well, we're in here. The one thing that I continued to hear continually when I was younger in school that drove me crazy, well, when you get in the real world. Well, when you get in the real world. I will tell you, worst phrase ever. I hated that. Right? Did you ever? I mean, you're laughing about it. I mean, did you?
No, it's true. It's that whole just wait thing, and that you hear when your wife is pregnant for the first time, or you hear when you're getting ready. It's the people who have done it, those who have been there and been through it, telling you just wait, just wait, and then you have a completely different experience than they did, because everybody's experience is different.
Absolutely, so on the nose.
It's exactly that, and I think I mentioned in the first episode. We're recording these in advance, so I haven't been able to listen back, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself. But when I was playing in the orchestra of Guys and Dolls in college, when I was watching the actors on stage, and when I decided, like, that's what I want to do, it's all of that you just mentioned. It's seeing someone else doing it and knowing that, like, they had a different path, a different journey to get there. Yours has been different, but you could still do that. And it's inspiring, because there's no one road to get there. Everybody who's a creator and is putting something out there has taken their own journey to do it. And you could watch 50 men do the same exact monologue or sing the same exact song, but none of them had exactly the same process to get there to that performance level. And I think that that's so wonderful about art. And I was always cautious. I don't know what forced me to realize it at such a young age, but I remember being, even then in community college, being careful of trying to like pigeonhole any one sort of method. Like I'd have friends who are like, "Are you Meisner? Are you how are you studying?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna find what works from each one,
Yep.
each mindset, and use it. Use whatever I want from this. Use whatever I want for that. Whatever helps me get to what I how I see myself performing."
I'm a huge fan of that technique. Huge fan of that technique. Because it is trying to find that thing that works. And I get it that there's people out there that say, well, this is specifically the way that you need to do it. And that may exactly work for somebody, and that's awesome. I've been the same way, Paul. I've been a real fan of the, well, what works for you as long as you're showing up and doing the craft, I think that that's a really important thing. That thing that you just talked about, too, of like seeing the stuff. I had spoken to my friend Randy Shulman years ago. He'd had a conversation with a guy that went to go see Les Miserables. Uh, I'm saying this now because you just did a big Les Miserables special on Polly's Picnic, your virtual picnic that you did on YouTube. This guy went to go see Les Miserables in Broadway, and I forget what his profession was, but he was looking at it, and he saw the actor that was portraying Jean Valjean, and he said, I want to do that. And 5 years later, he completely had switched careers, and he was the lead. He was playing Jean Valjean in a Broadway production of Les Miserables. So you never know when that spark is going to hit you like that. But when it hits you, you have to show up and do the work, right? You have to show up and do the work. But then, more to our point of what we're talking about in this, you start surrounding yourself with like-minded people that are on the same path. But I do want to throw out a couple of things, because I've had this along the way in my journey, and Paul, I'm sure that you can speak to this as well. It's been very important for me to surround myself with people that are trying and stretching and growing, because along the way there are going to be people that are, well, for lack of a better word, they might be tourists in it. They might be tourists in the art. They might be hobbyists in the art. That's not a bad thing. They may be people that have their own fears, limitations, their own specific mindsets that they try to put on yourself. The thing that you said earlier is just like, wait till you get to the real world, right? Well, I've been surrounded by people that have been like in these tribes of classes, and every once in a while you get somebody that's dealing with their own junk, and you'll start hearing them say, well, you can never make a living as an artist. Well, it's impossible to do that, right? And after a while you start listening to them and you start realizing, no, that's your view of this. Like, I'm going to go and do it anyway. And I literally have had people like go, I don't know how you're doing it. It's like, I don't know, but one of the ways I did it was by not listening to what you were saying.
I don't know what it is that gives people that kind of block, but I've been experiencing it recently with my daughter. I have a baby girl. She just turned 6, but she's an extrovert. She's a brilliant performer, and
Brilliant.
she recently booked a major motion picture and finished filming that a few months ago. And I've had several people over the course of this experience do the whole I don't know, Hollywood and children. Make sure she's not shaving her head once she's 18 and on the
Right.
heroin. And it's like, yeah, well, so that happens to a couple of kids, and then every child who ever does a movie is going to become that. Yeah, I don't think so. It all depends on your life experience. It all depends on the people you surround yourself with. And it's just funny how there are certain people who form this mindset and that just either blocks you or sticks with them, or blocks them or sticks with them to block other people.
Yeah.
And it's very important to not surround yourself with those kind of people, but surround yourself with the nurturing ones that are positive and inspiring.
Yeah, well, the vision that I have as you're saying that is I think about, the crabs that are in a bucket, and one crab is trying to get out, and then the other crab is like pulling the other one down, like going, no, 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 you gotta hang out here with us. Um, and I have had that experience before. I mean, I remember specifically, late 90s, early 2000s, I was cranking it commercial wise, like there was a lot of stuff that was going on. And I remember being around groups of people that talked about like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to go do the commercial acting thing or whatever. And for me, it was like brand new territory. Like a lot of the stuff that I was trying to navigate and negotiate, commercial business acting wise, was like I was just learning it as I was going. But I felt like I was surrounded by a whole bunch of people saying, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And I remember having that distinct feeling where I felt like I'm out here all by myself. Like all of these people that said that they want to do it, like they're not doing it at all. And you suddenly had this realization of going, okay, I guess I'm going to show up. It's the commercial business, and I've taken a step back from it, but it definitely wasn't easy as I was doing it. I mean, you've experienced this, Paul, like especially at that time, you know, you're always getting like these last minute calls. There'd be times where you'd be showing up for work at Disney and all of a sudden your phone's going off saying, can you be in Santa Monica at 1 o'clock? And I'd have managers that were just like going, you can't, what are you doing? And there were a lot of times where I had to take those risks and go, I'm leaving because I got to go do this, because if I don't do this, I'm going to miss out on, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that could come my way. And whew,
And
Boy,
it's brutal too. And I'm not being that person that says, "Oh, you'll never make it in commercials," but like, especially when you're starting out as an actor, like you just think, yeah, you watch commercials and you think I could do that, but it's just like there's so much more involved in having a career to doing that. It's like I think I mentioned in our first episode, like when people just like I haven't heard from them in 5 years, and then they Facebook message me and say, my daughter wants to be in commercials too. How does she do that? It's like, well, you better be all in. You can't just go be in commercials. It's like my wife likes to say, my wife grew up on Broadway. She's a brilliant singer. She's, I think, in my opinion, the most talented singer in the world. But people say to her all day long, you should go be on Broadway. You should go be on American Idol. You should go be on The Voice. And it's like, okay, it's not that easy. There's
right.
a little bit involved in all of that. But yeah, it's hard. You really have to dedicate yourself. And there are a small percentage of people who started out all gung-ho that still make it and still are successful because of all of the challenges involved in even just being a commercial actor. There's the networking, the being available whenever, like it makes it really hard to have a job, as you just mentioned, being available for last minute auditions, last minute callbacks, last minute fittings. It's a lot of work.
it's a huge challenge. Yeah, and to your point, you have to be all in with that. And continuing along this thought of making sure that you're surrounding yourself with those people that are going to help you out with this, right? Um, I think you've made. I think that there's something that you said that's sparked something here for me, and that is, you got to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with friends and family that are going to help you. Now, there's going to be friends and family that do the exact opposite, right? I always say this to students: your some of your loudest protesters and your biggest champions are going to be family members, right?
Yeah.
They can be the same people, right? They can be the same people that are, so they don't want you to get hurt or don't do this stuff, and then when you win, they're going, "Oh my gosh, you're the best," right?
I always knew it. I always knew you would.
I knew he could do it. Yeah. Did you? Because that's not the conversation we were having 10 years ago, right? For me particularly, this is where I'm going to give I want to give a huge shout out to my wife, Kate. I would not be in the position I am and doing the things I am doing if it was not for her support. My gosh, how challenging it is. Especially, there can be so much uncertainty that happens with it, especially when you're in the acting part of it. There are elements of it that you can't control. There are some things that you can control: headshots, putting stuff out, trying to get the agent. But there's so many variables that are with it. I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for the support of my wife, where she's just like going, just go for it. I believe in you. I trust you. I always tell the story. The fact that I got the Disney job, man, the fact that I got the Disney job. I mean, Kate was 3 months pregnant and telling me to quit, and just, I mean, she took a huge gamble and a risk, but it's because she believed in me. And I think that over the years, I think that this is something that the artist can get. It's very important for the artist to communicate. Get clear on what you're trying to do. Get clear on what it is that you're trying to do, but have a general idea of what direction that you're trying to go towards.
And it
I
might be ever changing. It might not
yeah.
be the same next week as it is today, but without that clear vision, you're kind of just wandering in the dark with your arms out. You know, as we talk about it and we talk about our experiences, you know, where it's very actor industry heavy, but this spans across all the arts, and any creator out there who's listening to this, if you don't have that support behind you, like, you're fighting an even tougher battle. I'll never forget the decision I made that I mentioned in the first episode to leave UCLA theater school to go out and audition for commercials and stuff, and having to tell my parents, mom and dad, I'm leaving the university to go wait tables and audition for commercials. And they were just completely 100% supportive the entire way. And I'm still grateful for that. And I still bring it up to them all the time, and just thank them as much as I can. And my wife as well, like, we'll dive into this in a later episode, but she worked on Broadway. She majored in theater at NYU. She did more shows after graduating. She came back and worked at Disneyland with us, and did a bunch of professional singing. And then at one point she said, you know what, I'm gonna stop, and I'm gonna go pivot and change careers, because we need to be set in our future. And she said to me, like, you are way more passionate about this than me. I'm just doing it because it's all I've ever known, and it's been a job for me. I support you. You go do your thing, and I'm gonna go get like some steady work. I wouldn't be where I am today without my parents and my wife, because
Wow.
I would be living in a studio apartment in God knows God knows where, trying to pick up more shifts at the theme park.
I get it. I get it. Let me speak to this as well. I understand that there might be people that are out there that they don't have that support system of family, parents, spouse. Totally get that. Wife or husband that's supporting them in this. It is possible to find other people that can help you get through this as well. And I think that that's why it's important to get around like-minded artists. I want to be very clear about the people that you surround yourself with as you're doing this. Again, speaking from with an actor's perspective, but realizing that this goes across the different fields of art. Make sure that you've got people that are in your camp that want the best for you. People that you're establishing like true, bona fide, loving friendships with. We've got some people in our life that we met in a Hollywood acting class 20 years ago. They are as close as family. They really are. They're over for Thanksgiving and Christmas and all of our major stuff. Dana Middleton, Pete Atkins. I mean, they're just, Dana's Kate's writing partner, and just like they might as well be my brother and sister. You know what I mean? And these are people that we met, Dana we met through acting class, and Pete's her husband, and just, love them dearly. And there's so many major accomplishments that we've made. The biggest supporters and fans of us, and vice versa. That's the way that we feel about them. And when you've got people like that, I mean, let me give you an example of how good these people are. They're going to hate that I told this story. Here we are moving up in Studio City in our place that we live in, and Thanksgiving dinner. I must have had an old green refrigerator that we brought all the way back down from Northern California. We're getting ready to do Thanksgiving. it must have been from like the late 70s or something. I traded a used car for it. I needed a refrigerator, right? So I ended up getting this fridge. We go out shopping for Thanksgiving dinner, and we buy all of the groceries for it, put all of the stuff in it. The refrigerator breaks down 2 days before Thanksgiving after we've purchased all this stuff. And we're barely making it by. Paul, in those days, I'm telling you, man, I used to have weeks where I would get out the penny jar to make sure that I had enough gas to get down to Disneyland. Okay? This is the stage that I was in while trying to pay for acting classes. We bring home all of this food. The refrigerator craps out 2 days before Thanksgiving. P and Dana spent $400 of their own money and helped us get a used refrigerator that we've had back in the house the next day, you know? And you know what I mean? Like those people, they came to the rescue. Those are the type of people that we have in our life, that we surrounded ourselves with, who are also artists and performers, but those people that have got your back and that they want the very best for you. It's another thing when you get around circles of artists and there's competition and all that other stuff. And I can understand. Paul, I'm just going to speak from the heart on this. I get it that this happens a lot with guys, right? It happens a lot with guys where we'll sort of do like the digging at each other or the making fun of each other. You know, it's a guy thing that happens. But I will say this. Be cautious about that slipping into a pattern of really digging at each other or really slicing at each other. You know what I mean? If you've got a whole bunch of people that in your camp, it feels like Dorothy Parker's vicious circle, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, right? You really got to take a step back and go, I am so not a huge fan of roasts. I cannot stand roasts. I've been a part of a couple of roasts. Roasts just make me crawl out of my skin. Here's my personal view. If you're around people all the time as an artist and your circle of artists, it feels like a constant Comedy Central roast, I would probably take a step back and go, are these people that are going to build me up, right?
Yeah. Because comedy comes from pain, and
Oh,
they're clearly feeling some pain.
You and I can speak to this, right? The hardest rooms that I have ever performed in are for comedians.
Yeah.
The worst. We have been in rooms. Oh my gosh, we have been in rehearsal rooms where you know the vibe, man. You know exactly the vibe. There's usually a couple of alpha dogs that are usually in the room, and they're the people that when they do everything, everybody else is like laughing, going, "Oh my gosh, they're fantastic," right? And then everybody else, when you go up and you try stuff, and it's just silence. It's silent because there's two things that are going on, right? Like either people are just going, "That's not funny," or there's other people going, "Oh my gosh, that's funny," and I got to try to figure out something else funnier.
I can't show that that's funny. I can't show that impressed me.
Oh, hardest room.
That's a great point. But at the same time, to kind of like flip this whole thing on its head, you have to surround yourself with people who love you and support you, but will still be brutally honest with you.
Yes. Yes. There's no way. What is who is helping you by saying, "Oh, you're great, you're fantastic, you're awesome," and then get out there and throw you to the wolves? It's ridiculous. They're not helping anybody. I talk to students about this all the time, Paul. I really think it's important as you're going along in your creative career, whatever you're doing, surround yourself with a board of a personal board of directors for yourself. And it really should be, it's people that know you, love you, want the best for you, and can call you on your junk, right? They're the people that can call you when you're making a bad artistic decision or something isn't working, that they have no problem with pulling the punches. I'm going to tell this story. Kate's not going to like this. I am very good on professional business phone calls thanks to my wife. And I'll tell you why I'm good on professional phone calls, because once I had a phone call with one of my first commercial agents, and on the phone call with my commercial agent, this is how I sounded. Oh my gosh, just thanks so much for everything that you're doing for me. It's so great to be working with you, and I just really everything would just be I just would be nowhere without you. So anything that I can do for you would just be great. And then I got off the phone. And then Kate came out, and I'm paraphrasing it, but she said, "I don't ever want to hear you like that again. You're better than that.
Wow.
You're better than that." Now I'm paraphrasing it, but like that's the meat and potatoes of what happened.
Yeah.
And the meat and potatoes were, you don't have to be less than for somebody else like that. You basically don't have to grovel. You don't have to pretend to be lower, because you're better than that. You're worthy, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember getting that. And of course, when you hear that, it stings, right? It stings. And you feel a mixture of shame, anger. She doesn't understand, blah, 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 blah. And then yet there's the truth that's in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And because of that, I am killer on professional phone calls.
Yeah, and I got to tell you from my experience, like a lot of what you described in the beginning, it was true. Just people being like, "Oh my gosh, you're so great. No, keep doing it. It's great." And even if something wasn't great, it was like, "Hey, yeah, it was fine. It was good." Until like I have like 3 people in my life that really will call me on my BS. And the first one obviously is my wife. When I met her, it's a big long story about how just like I couldn't impress her with anything. And she, having, you know, all this background as she was a child actress growing up and everything, and I didn't decide I wanted to be an actor till college. I've always been able to look to her for an honest opinion about a performance or something I wrote, which has been really unique to me throughout the years. She's always been that honest soundboard that I can bounce ideas off, or get a seriously honest opinion about a performance
Right.
from her. The second person I ever met that was like that for me personally was you, Kevin. And I remember, I'll never forget, like I
I know this story, buddy. I feel so bad.
don't. I taught myself how to be a screenwriter just by reading books, self-taught and blah, blah, blah. And I wrote my very first feature-length film, and I showed it to a bunch of people who were all like, "Dude, this is great. Yeah, you should make it. It's totally good." And then I showed it to Kevin Gregg, and a couple weeks later, we had a long phone call in which he just like basically was like, "This is not, this is no, you need to break it down." And
Can I give you the mindset of that for a second though too? Because I want somebody to be able to hear this on the other side of it,
of course,
which is completely believe in you and know your abilities and know all the things that you can do. And I knew that that was going to be a hard conversation. And I knew also that I wasn't going to go into that conversation just shredding it. You know what I mean? Like ripping it to parts and not giving solves or doing any of that other stuff. But honestly, to be able to go, here are some of the issues that I see. Here are things that are positive with it that you can do, and here's some issues that I think need to be addressed. And believe me, on the other side of it, you want nothing more than to be able to shower somebody with accolades and to do that stuff.
sure.
But I remember that call. I remember that call and that conversation and going, yeah, we need it. We want to have this talk because I want the best. I want the best for you.
Yeah. And you did it with grace. You did the whole open and close with the positive stuff and put the baloney in the middle, like the not so good stuff right in the middle. But I remember being on that phone call with you because you always have been ever since I met you, someone that I looked up to as a mentor. And I'll never forget you saying, "Have you shown this to other people?" And me being like, yeah, a bunch of other people. And just hearing the way you asked, "Yeah, what did they say about it?" It was just like, Okay. All right, here it comes. But I need it, and I needed it, and like I appreciated that so much. Of course, in the moment, it kind of stung,
Of
but
course it does.
I came away with that knowing that you were somebody who was always going to be honest with me, that I could continue to look to as a mentor, and would continue to help me grow. And I'm so blessed that you're still in my life. And very quickly, the third person I ever met like that was my now near and dear friend, Mr. Dan Franklin, who is a creator. He's an amazing songwriter, musician, and writer, now screenwriter and actor, who we've done several projects together over the years. And he is one person that I've worked with over the years who just really, anytime I'm doing something or I'm just about to put something out there that he knows that I can do better, like he'll put me in check and be like, why don't you just take another week with that and see what you can
Yeah.
do? Like there just aren't a lot of people that I've met that will say that to me. Like you can do that a little bit better. Why don't you
Yeah.
go ahead and even when we're on set together, like as and I'm in the director capacity and he's there as a producer or an actor, he'll come to me and be like, all it takes is just a simple question to make you realize, oh, maybe I could do that better. Just something like, how did you feel about when you said whatever? Like,
Mhm.
but surrounding yourself with these people who aren't afraid to push you to be better, in
Yes.
not in a negative way,
Nope.
but in a very nurturing way that will help you grow in your craft.
I'm such a huge proponent of that, especially when it comes to any sort of criticism or growth. It's one thing to it's one thing to eviscerate something, but to what end?
Yeah.
Why would you not? It's really how I approach it with a lot of people too. If you're going to ask me for what my opinion is or to do this, and I encourage this for you, Paul, or for anybody else that's listening, that you're ever in this position, because you will be in this position where you have the opportunity to help somebody else out. Help them with grace so they can move forward. I don't understand the idea. I could never understand the idea. I'm going to keep names out of it. But I could never understand situations in artistic situations where I would see somebody eviscerated and nothing to help bring the person up, or no help given to help the other person grow. Especially if you're in a leadership position, it's to go, come on, man, come on, you got to help them. You got to help them some way or another. I'm a big one on that. So I'm grateful that you have that. I'm grateful that I have it. And listen, man, I do think that this can evolve over time. Like sometimes I think that there's sort of a changing of the guard that can happen as you grow, because you are going to run into people. There might be people in your circle that don't have the experience with what you're going through. And then you got to move on and find other people, or find other mentors, or find other people that can share that information with you. Be looking, be actively looking. If there are people that are out there that are doing the stuff that you want to do, be bold. Figure out, how can I get into a situation where I'm not stalking them or anything like that, but how can I get into a situation that I can be around them? There's a couple of people that I'm looking at like long term down the line where I'm thinking, okay, man, how do I get involved in this person's class, or this person's thing that they do, or this person's mastermind, right? Like this could be stuff that would end up costing me a chunk of change down the line. But there are people that I truly do go, what you've got, I truly want, and at what point can I get into your circle so that we can be working together? And that's not to say that I'm buying my way into it, but there's people that I'm looking at like long term that I go, I really admire the way that they teach, that they lead, that they learn. And how can I be in those circles? So constantly be growing, you know?
I recently heard something that somebody phrased it in a way I'd never heard it, but I realized it's something that I've done forever, and that's make them say no. Like be never be afraid to ask. Like if you're, and I do this to people constantly, like people who I want to be a guest on my live streams, or if I want to work with somebody on something, float it out there and see, cuz you never know if you never ask for someone's help, or you never ask for someone's collaboration
Yeah.
on a project, you're never going to get it. So you have to at least ask. You have to reach out there, and the asking lets them know that A, you value their work, B, you want to work with them, and C, like this is an opportunity to help each other along the way throughout this creative process. Never be afraid to ask.
Gosh, I think that that's such solid advice, right? Do those things. If you heard that right now, what Paul was talking about, if you heard that and there was something inside you in your gut that you just went, oh, I could never do that. I guarantee you it's probably something that you need to do. All right. If you literally, if you had a gut reaction to that right now and went, I could never do that, I have a funny feeling that's probably something in your life that you need to break through and to give a shot. Solid advice, my man.
Or if you heard that and it made you think of someone you've been wanting to ask for a while, you need to do it.
Let's throw this out to our listeners. I think that this is a good place to sort of close it out because I do like leaving actionable items for people. Take that time. Take that time this week again. Sit down, put on a timer for 6 minutes, 12 minutes, 18 minutes. I don't care what it is. Sit down and write out something. Think about those people that may be in your sphere or just outside of that, right? And think about somebody that you might want to reach out to and talk to. Realize that you may get a no, and that's okay. But be specific. Maybe even get really clear and specific about what your ask is. Get really specific about one little thing. If there's one little piece of information that I could get from this person, what would it be? Right? I don't think that that question, let me give you an example of a question you might not want to ask somebody. Hey, how do I break into commercials? Too broad. How about this? And really working on somebody's expertise. Hey, if you were just starting out in commercials, what do you think's the best thing I could do? Very specific, right?
Even
Think
just
about that.
narrow it down to today. Like that's one thing I've been asked recently too is like if you were doing this today, what would you do? Like something that I've done in the past, making a web series or shooting a short film. Like so much has changed in the arts and in accessibility in the past 3 to 4 years. And that just shows whoever you're considering to be a mentor, whoever you want advice from, that you recognize that they have done something in the past and they have a bit of expertise in that field, and that you are just like, it's very specific. If you were to do that again, if you were to do that today, what would you suggest? Or what would you suggest I either gravitate toward or be sure I stay away from?
Solid. Solid advice. So do yourself a favor, walking away from this episode. Take that time, sit down, write. Think about somebody that you might want to reach out to, and then get very specific about what that question would be, and then figure out a way that you can get in communication with them, whether it's through a phone call, a text, an email, reaching out on social media, whatever that is. They may not answer, they may not say no, but at least you're taking the step to do it. So try it, do it, do it. Excellent. I think that's a good place to wrap it up, Paul. What do you think?
I think I want to keep talking about support systems and tribes and surrounding
I
yourself
do
with
too.
people who want to see you succeed.
I know. Well, I'll tell you what, we're gonna get into another part of this in our next episode, which I can't wait to talk about. Now we switch from talking about the immediate support systems that the artist can do, and then we're going to broaden the horizons. What happens when you get to the point that you're looking for support from your audience, your tribe, your fan base? We're going to talk about some of the experiences that we've had. More specifically, I'm going to be asking you a whole bunch of questions, Paul,
Oh,
because you're an
oh, good.
ace in this place.
I'm very excited, really.
I'm looking forward to it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to our podcast, Your Creative Journey. You can listen to us a whole bunch of different places. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio is coming as well, too. All of those things. Could you please do us a favor? If you have enjoyed the show, could you please leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts? If you leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts, that gets the word out to more people. Share this stuff, share the show with other people on social media so we can get the word out. And tell you what, if you leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts, we'll give you a shout out here on the show. Because if you've taken the time to write out a review, the very least we can do is give you a thanks for doing that. So,
And I just wanted just to add, we don't ask for this because we need to make new friends or to feel better about ourselves. It literally helps us reach more people if you write a review, if you share it, and we're not doing this for money. We're just doing this to reach more people, and you can help. You can help in that way by hitting that quick review or that quick share button, and it goes a long way, and it's free to do.
well, thanks so much for listening to us for your creative journey. I'm Kevin Gregg. You are.
I'm Paul Carganella.
We will see you next time on our show. Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye-bye. Intro music by Scott Holmes. You can find more of his music at scottholmesmusic.com.